Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Korra, Opal and Asami? Part 1. Huge shout out to Power of Magic for this story. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. It was a regular day in Republic City, except that today a new restaurant was opening in the business district. Looks like we are all set, Will said, as she and Naruto stood outside a big building, with a sign on the front that had a kitsune on the sign, with its big tail wrapped around the name on the sign, which was the Rising Tide. Yup. Glad that I was able to buy this property on the cheek, Naruto said with a grin. I'm just glad Saiyan funded us, Will said with a smile. Naruto also smiled at the memory of how he and Will arrived in this world. Flashback start. Zaofu, 6 months ago. Saiyan Bifrong was practicing her metal bending with some of her sons while being watched by her daughter Opal, who enjoyed watching her family metal bend even if she was a non-bender. Suddenly, a bright blue portal opened in the air above them. Saiyan was ready in an instant and made some small blades shoot out of her wristbands just in case. Two figures then dropped out of the portal and landed on the ground in a heap just as the portal closed up. Ugh, I hate rough landings, Will groaned as she rubbed her head. What rough landing? You're on my back. Naruto groaned. Naruto's clothes then started to move and a small orange kitsune poked his head out of his neck and jumped out. Oh great, the nymph gave you a free pass, huh? Will asked the kitsune as she climbed off Naruto. The kitsune barked at this but then gained a surprised look before growling in anger. Naruto had a grin at this. Ha. Looks like you've lost the ability to talk, he said with a massive grin. Now you're just a cute little pet with a bad attitude, Hashirama. Will said with her own grin. Kurama growled at this before clamping onto Will's leg with his mouth. Will yelled out in pain and started running around. Hey. No teeth, I just got this body. She yelled. No, bad Kurama. Let her go. Naruto shouted as he ran after them. But was stopped by Saiyan, who had her blades pointed at him with a glare. Who are you? She asked him with a slight edge to her voice. I'm Naruto. And I come in peace. Naruto asked with a nervous smile, with his hands held up. Hey, back off. Will yelled as she held up her hand and made a fireball appear. What the? She asked, surprised at this. Look, why don't we try and calm down? We aren't here to fight, Naruto said calmly to Saiyan. You invaded our home with your portal. Forgive me if I don't trust you, Saiyan said. Her two sons on either side of her, while slightly back, nodded in agreement with frowns on their faces. Oh great. Not even 5 minutes in this world and we are already in trouble, Will said with a grumble. This world? Are you from the spirit world? Opal asked curiously as she walked over. Kurama finally let Will go and walked over to Opal and started to sniff at her curiously. Opal smiled at this and reached down to let Kurama sniff her hand. Well, if Kurama likes you, you must be good, Naruto said with a smile. Yay, and Kurama doesn't like anyone. He barely tolerates us, Will said with a smile. She looked down at the bite on her leg and scowled slightly. You better not have rabies. She yelled at Kurama while shaking her fist at him. Relax, babe. He didn't even break the skin, Naruto said with a chuckle. Wow, so he is weak now, Will said with a smirk. Kurama's hair went on edge and he barked at Will hearing this. Okay, enough. Who are you two? Saiyan demanded with a firm tone. Naruto sighed at this and ran his hand through his hair as he started to explain to Saiyan. End of flashback. Yay, I'm just glad she believed us after that uptight guy with the piercings confirmed we weren't lying, Will said as they entered the restaurant. Yay. It didn't take long for us to befriend her and her family after that, Naruto said with a smile. Yay. Too bad Saiyan wouldn't let Opal come with us, Will said with a chuckle. Not for lack of trying on Opal's part, Naruto said with his own chuckle at the memory of Opal's reaction to him and Will leaving for Republic City. Yay, she practically begged her mother to let her go with us, Will said. Well, with the whole Equalist thing going on, I can see why Saiyan would want to avoid letting her come here, Naruto said with a shrug. Don't forget the Triads, Will said with a roll of her eyes. Naruto laughed at this. True, but those guys are easy for us to beat, he said with a smile. Yay. I give it a week before they try that protection crap, Will said, making air quotes with her fingers. Kurama then jumped onto a table and made a scoffing sound, showing he found the Triads pathetic. So, when are you gonna introduce yourself to that Tenzin guy? Will asked Naruto as she headed for the kitchen of the restaurant. Yay, I should probably tell them the news that they are not alone, huh? Naruto asked as he made a small Rasengan made of air in his palm. Since they arrived in this world, they discovered that Naruto and Will's magic and chakra abilities were replaced with airbending and firebending. A few of Saiyan's guards, who were firebenders, helped Will get airbending under control, while Saiyan gave Naruto a few pointers with his airbending after mentioning that she'd met Tenzin a few years ago. Thankfully, they could still walk on walls and water and Naruto still had his seals. But attack-wise, they were limited to their new bending skills. They'd also met Saiyan's other family members and hung out with them. They sparred with Wei and Wing a few times, with Naruto and Will winning at times. They also met and helped Saiyan's husband Badr Sr. and oldest son Badr Jr. with a few of their inventions by giving a few pointers at what they could do to make it better. They'd also met Huan and found him to only be interested in his artwork and nothing else. Opal spent most of her time with them as Naruto and Will told her about the adventures they had, which made Opal wish she could have adventures like that. Saiyan also taught them the history of the world and let them live in Zaofu for a while before she told Naruto to head to Republic City so that Tenzin could better teach him airbending. He and Will had traveled around the world first and had arrived in Republic City about a week ago. Yay. Let's hope they don't try to shave you bald, Will yelled from the kitchen. Kurama snickered at this. Yeah, that's not happening, Naruto said. Well, it's something you have to deal with, sweetie. So get going, Will said. You gonna be okay on your own here? Naruto asked her. I'll be fine. Plus, I have our mascot to help if I need to crack heads, Will said, gesturing to Kurama. Don't get arrested, we don't want Saiyan's sister to have it in for us, Naruto said as he walked towards the door. Hey, I won't attack if the Triads leave us alone, Will said with a huff. Yay, which we know they won't, Naruto thought as he left. Him and Will had heard that the Triads extorted 70% of profits from every business in the city. So, it wasn't a matter of if they would try anything, it was when. Later. Naruto approached the pier and saw Airbending Island thanks to the giant tower in the middle of the island. Well, looks like I'll have to walk to the island, Naruto said with a sigh before something caught his eye. To the right of him, he saw what looked like a teen water tribe girl that looked to be around his age and riding with what looked like a mix between a polar bear and a dog. The polar bear dog was about to jump into the water when it sniffed the air and took off down the road. Naga, stop. The teen girl yelled out. Naruto chuckled at this. Must be fresh off the boat, he thought to himself as he watched her polar bear dog poke its head into a food stand. Naga, wait. He heard the girl yell out, causing the polar bear dog to whine. Naruto decided to go help the girl as he saw her talking to the vendor lady who was being rude to the teen girl. Dear lady, Naruto said, giving the vendor some wulong, which was the currency for Republic City. The teen girl blinked in surprise at this before she smiled as Naruto handed Naga some meat from the stand. There you go, good dog, Naruto said with a smile as he pet Naga. Naga sniffed Naruto for a moment before she gave him a lick. Naruto laughed at this as Naga took the food he offered. First time in the city? Naruto asked the teen girl. She gave a sheepish laugh at this as she rubbed her arm. That obvious, huh? She asked with a slight smile. Naruto smiled and nodded at this. Don't worry. You will get used to the city soon enough. The name's Naruto, by the way, he said, sticking his hand out. The teen girl smiled at this and took his hand. Korra, she said as she shook his hand. Pretty strong, aren't you? Naruto asked, feeling Korra's grip. So are you, Korra said as she could feel Naruto was gripping her hand tightly. So, what brings you to Republic City? Naruto asked as he, Korra and Naga left the food stand. I'm here to see Tenzin, Korra said, pointing at Air Temple Island, out in the water. Me too actually, Naruto said with a smile. We can go see Tenzin together, Korra said as she got on Naga. Hop on, she said to Naruto. Oh? Is this fella a swimmer? Naruto asked as he looked at Naga. Yup, she is from the South Pole, like me. So she loves the water, don't you, girl? Korra asked as she scratched Naga's ear. Naga panted happily at this. Naruto nodded at this and climbed onto Naga, sitting behind Korra. Let's go, Naga, Korra said as she flicked the reins. Naga quickly jumped into the water and took off swimming towards Air Temple Island. Naruto wrapped his arms around Korra's stomach so that he wouldn't fall off. Huh, nice abs, he thought to himself as he could feel Korra was quite buff. Air Temple Island. The bald man was eating lunch with his family in the dining room. The man had a mustache and beard combo and wore red and orange colored robes. He had an arrow tattooed on his head and on the back of his hands. Suddenly, the door to the room opened and a woman in an orange robe entered. Master Tenzin, you have some visitors, she said as she bowed her head. Tenzin gave a nod at this. Very well, please show them in, he said before taking a drink of tea. The woman was then pushed aside lightly as Korra entered the room with Naruto beside her. Yo, Naruto said with a smile as he raised his hand in greeting. Tenzin nodded at him, then Korra, and continued to drink his tea. He then looked at Korra again with a look of shock as he did a spit take. Korra. The three children yelled in excitement as they got up and ran over to her and gave her a group hug. Korra smiled at this and lifted them up as she hugged them back. "What are you doing here?" Tenzin asked with a frown as he wiped his mouth. "I came here to finally learn airbending from you. Plus, if the city needs help, then who better to help than the Avatar," Korra said with a grin as she placed her fists on her hips. Naruto looked at Korra with a raised eyebrow. "You didn't mention that," he said. Naruto then felt a tug on his shirt and he looked down and saw that it was the young boy and the youngest daughter. "Hey there, what do you need?" he asked them. "Why are you with Korra?" the girl asked curiously. "Oh, I wanted to visit your dad. I'm Naruto," he said with a smile. "Ikki, Milo, leave him be. He's a guest," the woman sitting with Tenzin said. "Thank you, Pima," Tenzin said with a grin, knowing that the kids would listen to her more than him at times. "We will discuss this later, Korra," Tenzin told her with a frown. "Now, what can I do for you, young man?" he asked Naruto with a kind smile. Naruto smiled and waved his hand and thrust it forward, making a burst of air. This left the whole room in absolute shock. "Cool." Milo yelled out with a large smile. "Daddy, I thought that we were the only known airbenders in the world," Ikki said. "We are," the oldest daughter said with a curious look. "Obviously we were wrong, Jinora," Tenzin said as he stroked his beard in thought. "Yay, I'm here for the same reason as Korra. I want to train with you," Naruto said with a grin. "Well, of course you're free to learn from us. You're one of us, right daddy?" Ikki asked Tenzin with a large grin. "Very well. Please join us for lunch so we can talk," Tenzin said. "You can join us too, of course," Korra Pima said with a smile at Korra. Korra nodded at this as she and Naruto sat down at the table. Sometime later. Naruto had just finished explaining some things to everyone. So you're new to Republic City and own a restaurant in the city?" Tenzin said. "Yup," here Naruto said, handing everyone a flyer. "Since you're airbenders, I'll give you a deal," he said with a smile. "What's pizza?" Ikki asked, looking at the flyer, which had a menu on the back. "We specialize in new types of food. Trust me, we're gonna be a hit," Naruto said with a smile, as he knew the comfort food from his and Will's worlds were gonna be a massive hit here in this world. "Well, if you wish to train with us," Tenzin was saying before he was interrupted. "I'm not shaving my head," Naruto said flatly, interrupting Tenzin. This made the kids giggle as they saw their father pause and pout slightly. "So can I stay?" Korra asked curiously. "I think it's a good idea," Naruto said with a nod. "And why is that?" Tenzin asked, wondering what Naruto's logic was. "I have only been in this city a week and I can already tell it needs her around. Between the Triads and those Equalists," Naruto said with a frown. "The Equalists?" Korra asked curiously. "The group of people that oppose benders," Tenzin said with a scowl. "Why would they do that?" Korra asked. "Well, you know that a lot of people abuse their bending. These people are most likely sick of them and want them gone," Naruto said with a sigh. "Well, I wouldn't blame them. From what I've heard, the Triads are a real problem that needs to be dealt with," Korra said with a scowl. "Korra, we have laws in the city and you can't just attack them," Tenzin said with a scowl. "Anyway, my point is that this city is way out of balance," Naruto said, crossing his arms. Tenzin paused at this as he knew that Naruto was right before he sighed. "Very well, she can stay," he said. "Yay." The three kids yelled out happily. "Well, glad I could convince you," Naruto said as he got up. "You're leaving?" Korra asked him. "Yay, I gotta get back to the restaurant. My girlfriend is probably worried or has attacked some jerk back at the restaurant," Naruto said as he left. Korra paused at this and pouted a little, hearing that Naruto already had a girlfriend. The next morning. Naruto and Will were making their way to Air Temple Island by running on the water thanks to their chakra. "Why are you coming with me?" Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. "I want to meet the Avatar," Will said with a grin. Naruto nodded at this, glad they got extra help for the restaurant while they were gone. They soon approached Air Temple Island. Will looked around in interest. "Nice place for only 4 airbenders," she said to Naruto as they made their way up some steps. "5 actually. Tenzin's wife Pima is pregnant and from what I hear, it will most likely be an airbender," Naruto said with a grin. "Huh, so Tenzin wants more airbenders around, huh?" Will asked as ideas formed in her head. "Well, I would imagine so," Naruto said with a shrug. Will smirked at this information. "What are you planning?" Naruto asked her, recognizing the look on his girlfriend's face. "Oh, nothing," Will said, putting on an innocent look. Before Naruto could call out his girlfriend, they were stopped by a group of men in blue cloaks with white flower patterns. Hi?" Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. "You are not residents of Air Temple Island. State your business," one of them said with a frown. "Who's asking?" Will asked with an annoyed look as she crossed her arms. "We are members of the Order of the White Lotus and it is our duty to guard and protect the Avatar," one of them said as he stepped forward. I wouldn't do that," Naruto said as one of the men grabbed Will's arm. "Look, you're not residents, so we will escort you," the man who grabbed Will's arm was saying before Will grabbed his arm and judo flipped him, making the man slam on his stomach. Before the man could recover, Will stepped on his back and grabbed his arm and yanked on it, putting him into a submission hold. "What's going on here?" Tenzin yelled as he approached. "Oh, hey Tenzin. These guys decided to stop us from visiting," Naruto said, gesturing at the White Lotus guards. "Yay, and they have a shit attitude too," Will said as she waved at Tenzin while making sure the man she had in a hold didn't try anything. "Now, there's no need for that, miss," Tenzin said to Will. Will nodded at this and let the man up before she threw him to his friends. "Call me Will," she said. An interesting name," Tenzin said as he bowed to her in greeting. "Nickname," Naruto said with a smile before ducking from Will throwing a fireball at him. "Don't test me, babe," Will said with a sweet smile that was anything but. Tenzin slightly shivered at this. It's like a firebending Lin, he thought, remembering her temper when they dated. "Master Tenzin, are you sure they are trustworthy?" one of the White Lotus members asked him. "Naruto is one of my new students and Miss Will is with him, so they are allowed to visit my home. Is that clear?" Tenzin asked with a hard look. The White Lotus members nodded at this. "I'm glad you are here, Naruto. Korra is eager to get started," Tenzin said as he turned around and walked off. "Well, this is her final element she has to master. I would imagine she is eager to finally get started," Naruto said with a grin as he and Will followed Tenzin. "Well, we brought some food to share with you all, since Naruto insisted on sharing it with his fellow airbenders," Will said with a smile at Naruto for being sentimental. "Oh really? Are you having it delivered?" Tenzin asked as he didn't see any takeout boxes with them. They all entered the main house and saw the rest of the family and Korra waiting, with Korra wearing airbender clothing. Will looked at Korra and subtly checked her out and smirked a little. "Behave," Naruto whispered to Will as he gave her a knowing look. "Finally, I thought you'd never get here," Korra said with a grin. "Sorry, we wanted to bring some food from our restaurant," Naruto said as he pulled up his arm and undid a seal that was on his forearm and in a poof of smoke, he had a pizza box and several bags in his arms. "Oh, that was nice of you," Pima said with a smile as Naruto put the food on the table. "How did you do that? Are you a magician as well? Can you teach us how to do that? Can you make other stuff appear too?" Ikki asked rapidly. "Sorry, trade secret," Naruto said as he ruffled Ikki's hair. "I smell sugar," Milo said as he sniffed at a bag. "Yay, we brought some donuts," Will said with a smile at the little boy. Naruto saw the inquisitive look on Tenzin and Korra's face. "Fried dough, with sugar and frosting," he said, simplifying it for them. Will smiled and brought out a few donuts from the bag, then handed them to Milo and Ikki. "Is this that pizza you were talking about?" Jinora asked as she looked at the pizza box. "Yup. You can have all kinds of toppings on it. But from what Naruto said, you're all vegetarians, so we brought one with no meat," Will said as she opened the box. "Intriguing. What gave you the ideas for these foods?" Tenzin asked as they all took a slice. "This kind of food was normal back home. We just decided to introduce it to people here," Will said with a shrug. Korra smiled as she tried some pizza. "Well, you definitely have good food," she said. "Yay. We already have some regular customers too," Naruto said with a grin. "Anyone I know?" Tenzin asked curiously. "Just a few of the Metalbender officers and a few random citizens," Naruto said. "You get harassed by the Triads yet?" Korra asked with a frown. "No, but I can't wait to meet them so I can introduce them to my fists," Will said with a grin as she made a spark with her fingers. "I already have money put away for bail," Naruto whispered to Tenzin. "I heard that," Will yelled out. "Hey, this bag is moving," Milo yelled. Kurama then poked his head out of the bag, a burger in his mouth. "Eee. It's adorable," Ikki squealed out with a smile. Kurama's sweat dropped at this and took off before Ikki could grab him. "Come back, little kitsune," Ikki yelled as she took off after him, with Milo following her. "You have a pet?" Korra asked with a raised eyebrow. "Yay, that's Kurama," Naruto said with a sigh. "Wow, he ate the entire bag," Will said, looking in the bag to see nothing left. Later. Naruto and Korra were being led by Tenzin up some stairs to an area to do an airbender exercise. "Why doesn't he have to wear airbender robes?" Korra asked, seeing that Naruto was wearing a simple shirt and pants. "We don't have his size," Tenzin said. "It's okay. I prefer my own clothes anyway," Naruto said with a shrug. As they reached the top of the stairs, they saw Jinora, Ikki and Milo along with Will, waiting next to what looked like some gates in the middle of the area. "You find Kurama?" Naruto asked with a smile, upon seeing Ikki had Kurama in her arms. That's his name? I was calling him Cuddles, Ikki said with a grin as she rubbed her cheek on his head. Bull snorted at this and covered her mouth to stifle her laughter. Kurama had a flat look as he looked at Naruto with a begging look. Hey, why don't you show me and Korra how we do this exercise? Naruto asked Ikki, hoping to give Kurama a chance to get loose. Ikki nodded at this as she put Kurama down, who instantly ran to Will and jumped onto her shoulder. I'm not so bad now, huh Cuddles? Will asked with a smirk. Kurama growled at this, showing he was very unamused. Naruto and Korra watched as the airbending children showed them how the gates worked and Tenzin explained the exercise. Inora then sent a blast of wind at the gates, causing them to spin. So, who'd like to go first? Tenzin asked them. You can go first, Naruto said to Korra, knowing she was eager to get started. Korra nodded at this and ran forward into the gates to try and make her way through them. But she just got smacked around by the gates. Don't force your way through. Jinora yelled. You have to dance like the wind, Ikki said with a grin. Be the leaf. Milo said with a smile as he moved his arms in waving motions. Bull winced as Korra was sent flying out of the gates to the floor. Need some help? She asked as she approached and offered her hand to her to help her up. Korra nodded at this as she took Will's hand and let her help her to her feet. Okay, let's see if I can do this, Naruto said as he stretched a bit. Korra watched this and blushed a little. Okay, you can start when you're ready, Naruto Tenzin said as Jinora made the gate spin with a burst of air. Naruto nodded and closed his eyes for a moment before he jumped forward and entered the gates. They all watched as Naruto danced around the gates, avoiding being hit. Is he doing this with his eyes closed? Korra asked in surprise. Yay. He tries hard at everything he does, Will said with a smile. Naruto soon made his way through the gates and opened his eyes. That was fun, Naruto said with an at ease smile. You definitely have the right mentality for an airbender, Tenzin said with a nod. Naruto smiled at this before looking at Will. Do you want to give it back, babe? He asked her. Nah. If I want to dance, I'll have you take me out on the town, Will said with a saucy smile as she winked at him. Naruto rolled his eyes but chuckled at this. Okay Korra, let's have you try this some more. But this time, try to slow down, Tenzin said. Korra nodded at this as she approached the gates to try again. Later. It was now dusk and Naruto and Korra had finally ended their first day of training with Tenzin. Don't let it get you down, Korra. Everyone learns at their own pace, Naruto said as he and Will sat on the steps to the main building with Korra, with Naga resting her head on Korra's lap. Will nodded at this. Yeah. I'm sure that Tenzin had his fair share of mishaps in learning how to be an airbender, she said. Heck, I heard Avatar Aang had problems with earthbending at first. So you're not a failure, Korra, Naruto said, placing his hand on her shoulder in comfort. Korra sighed at this and shook her head, still disappointed in herself. Will frowned at this and then got up. Okay, let's go, you two, she said. What are you talking about? Korra asked with a raised eyebrow. Me and Naruto are gonna take you out and help you cheer up, Will said with a grin. Korra smiled at this before she lost it quickly. Can't, as the White Lotus entries will stop me from leaving, she said, crossing her arms. Oh, I'm sure they will let you leave with us. Right guys? Will asked with a sweet smile at the rooftop behind them at two White Lotus members who were watching them. We know nothing, one said as he looked away. What he said, the other said as he too looked away. Wow, only one encounter and they know you're not to be messed with, Naruto said with a chuckle at his girlfriend. Will just smiled at him as she gave a thumbs up. Korra giggled slightly at this before she gave a small frown. But what about Tenzin? She asked. If he complains, he can tell it to me, Will said as she grabbed Korra's arm. Now let's go, she yelled. So what's the plan? Naruto asked as they walked down the steps towards the docks off Air Temple Island with Naga following after them. Pretty simple actually. We head back to the restaurant and just chat and actually get to know our new friend here, Will said with a smile, throwing her arm around Korra's shoulder. Kurama jumped onto Naruto's shoulder, his fur on end and shaking. Wow, those kids have been making you nuts, huh? Naruto asked his fox companion as he scratched his head. Kurama said nothing, but he shook his fur loose. Later. Naruto, Will and Korra entered the Rising Tide, which was closed. Naga poked her head through the doorway since she was too big. Interesting restaurant, Korra said as she sat down at the bar while Will and Naruto went around the bar. Thanks. So, are you hungry? Naruto asked her. Yay, I bet you would like something with meat. Since I know Tenzin doesn't have that, Will said as she took out a menu and handed it to Korra. Korra looked over the menu and saw there was a variety of choices. Well, I didn't get to try a burger, she said with a look at Kurama. Kurama burped at her in response as he gave her a cheeky grin. I swear he acts human, Korra said with a shake of her head. Naruto and Will gave each other knowing looks at this. Okay, I'll get to work on that while you two talk, Naruto said as he headed into the kitchen. As he walked past Will, he whispered into her ear, don't scare her off before entering the kitchen. Will rolled her eyes at this and approached Korra. So, what are you into, besides training to be the Avatar? She asked as she leaned against the counter. Well, I was hoping to see a pro bending match sometime. But Tenzin said I can't as he thinks it's a disgrace to bending, she said with a sigh. It's a disgrace to have fun. Will asked with a quirked eyebrow as to her a sport seemed like a good hobby to have. If you want to go see a match, we could take you, Naruto yelled from the kitchen. Korra smiled at this. Well, I'm already sneaking out to get food with my new friends, she said with a smile. Atta girl. We can go tomorrow night, Will said with a smile. They then heard a knock on the door and when they looked they saw 3 men at the door. Naruto came out of the kitchen and placed a plate with a cheeseburger and some fries on the counter before heading for the door. He opened it and saw the 3 men were well dressed. Mr. Uzumaki? The one in red asked Naruto. That's me, Naruto said as the 3 men entered the restaurant with the one in green closing the door. We represent our boss Mr. Zolt, the one in blue said with a grin. Naruto rolled his eyes at this and held up his hand. Let me stop you right there, he said. Yay, we are not interested in playing that protection game, Will said as she came around from the bar. One of the men looked at Will and checked her out a bit before he smiled. Look, we aren't interested in paying your boss for just existing in the city. So why don't you just leave, Naruto said firmly as he opened the door for them. Yay, before we decide to make you leave, Will said, equally as firm. I don't think you want to reject our boss's offer. Fire is so dangerous and unpredictable that accidents happen, the man in red said as he made a flame between his hands. Yay. Though if you wanted to pay us in another way, cutie, we could talk, the man in blue said as he looked at Will with a perverse look. Will grabbed the man's arm and shocked him hard with a burst of electricity. Ag. He yelled out before Will kicked him hard, sending him into the wall. The man in green was about to attack with some rocks before his head was engulfed by water from behind by Korra. I was enjoying my food before you jerks showed up. Now it's gonna cost you, Korra said as she cracked her neck and knuckles. The man in red scowled at this. But before he could react, Naruto grabbed his wrist and grabbed him and slammed his head to the bar. Now. Where can I find your boss? The man said nothing as he just scowled up at Naruto. I would talk, Naruto said. Or next time, I'm asking, Will said as she stabbed a knife into the bar next to the man's head, causing sweat to form on his forehead. Later. Lightning Bolt Zolt was in his office, counting some money that his men brought him today. Have you got that new restaurant to pay us yet? Zolt asked one of his men. Before any of his men could respond, his men gasped and fell to their knees. What the spirits? Zolt asked before Naruto dropped from the roof and landed in front of his desk in a crouch before standing up. You Zolt? Naruto asked him. Who wants to know? Zolt asked with a frown. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, the one you sent 3 men that me and my friends just put in the hospital, he said. Zolt looked at his passed out men. I used airbending to make the air thinner for them. They will wake up soon, Naruto said with a shrug. Ah, I heard there was a new airbender in town. Not exactly a pacifist move, Zolt said with a grin as he leaned back in his chair. Yeah, well, I'm not one to take threats to my place of business or my girlfriend, Naruto said with a glare. Ah, I see one of my men tried something with your lady. Zolt asked, folding his arms over his chest. Well, he has several burns and broken bones, you tell me, Naruto said with a shrug. Zolt looked into Naruto's eyes and saw that he wasn't bluffing. What do you want? He asked him. Personally, I want my business to do well and I want to make friends in the city. But that's not important. What I want right now is for you and your gang of assholes to understand something, Naruto said as he approached Zolt. Before Zolt could react, Will was behind him and grabbed him by the back of his neck and slammed his head to his desk, causing his nose to break. You breathe wrong and I burn your neck to cinders, Will said with a growl. Where did she come from? Zolt thought in a panic. Understand this, Zolt, you cross me or my friends and your life is forfeit. Even if I get locked up, I will eventually get out and I can kill you without touching you, Naruto said with a cold look on his face. Blink if you understand, Will said, pressing his head on the desk. Zolt instantly blinked, showing that he understood. Thank you for your cooperation, Naruto said as he nodded at Will, who let Zolt go. Zolt groaned as he watched Naruto and Will leave his office. Those two aren't human, Zolt thought as he shook in terror while gingerly touching his broken nose. Outside. Okay, let's get you home before Tenzin has kittens, Naruto said with a smile at Korra, who was waiting across the street of the building while leaning against Naga. What did you two do to those guys, boss? Korra asked as they walked down the road. We had a nice chat, Will said with a shrug. There's blood in your sleeve, Korra said with a flat tone. Don't worry, he will live, Will said, waving her hand dismissively. You two don't fear anything, do you? Korra asked with a smirk. I could say the same about you, Naruto said with a chuckle as they approached the pier. Not really. So, see you two tomorrow night for that pro-bending match? Korra asked as she climbed onto Naga's saddle. Count on it, Naruto said with a smile. Korra nodded and smiled back as she and Naga jumped into the water and headed for Air Temple Island. Naruto and Will watched Korra with smiles on their faces. So you wanna funk her? Will asked bluntly. Naruto sighed at this and rolled his eyes. Way to be classy, Will, Naruto said as they turned around to head home. I don't hear a no, Will sang with a smile. You're exhausting, Naruto said, shaking his head. Yay, and what are you gonna do about it? Will asked challengingly. Naruto paused at this and looked at Will with a smirk. I'm gonna take you home and wreck you, he whispered to her as he groped her ass. Will shuddered at this before smiling. God, I love my life, she said as they entered the rising tide. Next day. Naruto was down in the restaurant with his workers dealing with the lunch rush. Soon, a few men in metal uniforms entered the building. Metalbenders, Naruto thought, recognizing the uniform. Naruto Uzumaki. One of the men asked as he walked up to the counter. That's me, Naruto said as he finished wiping a glass clean. We are here to ask you and Miss Bandam a few questions about an incident last night at Mr. Zolt's building, the Metalbender said as he sat down. Well, Will is sleeping. She had a long night, Naruto said with a prideful tone. One or two of the Metalbenders blushed at this, knowing what he was referring to. All we want to know is if you and Miss Bandam attacked anyone last night, the Metalbender asked. Not to my knowledge. Me and Will were hanging out with Avatar Korra last night by showing her around parts of the city, Naruto said with a shrug. The Metalbender nodded at this. Yes, Miss Korra told us the same, he said. So we're done? Naruto asked. Yay. Some triads reported you and Miss Bandam, though Zolt said they were being idiots, the Metalbender said. Well, I'm sorry you had to waste your time, officers. Is there anything I can get you from my restaurant? First order gets a discount for the city's finest, Naruto said with a smile. The officers nodded at this as they smiled at him. Well, we heard your donuts are actually pretty good. So how about a few boxes for the station? The lead Metalbender asked with a grin. Naruto nodded at this as he went into the back room to get the order. Later that night. Naruto and Will were getting ready to leave the restaurant open since they have their workers trained. Korra then came into the restaurant. You two ready to go? She asked with a grin. Yup, we are ready to go, Naruto said with a nod. Do you have any trouble sneaking off without Tenzin and the group of flower jerks noticing? Will asked. Nah, they were distracted by the radio, Korra said with a smile. Your tax dollars at work, Will said with a scoff and a smile. Naruto chuckled at this as he and the girls left the restaurant while Kurama climbed into Naruto's shirt. As they walked towards the pro-bending area, Will tapped on Korra's shoulder. How was airbending practice today? She asked. Korra gained a sheepish look as she rubbed the back of her head. Kinda got annoyed and angry that I wasn't getting through the gates, so I burned them, she replied over her shoulder. Naruto and Will both shook their heads at this. What you need is something to help you relax and keep calm as you go through the gates, Naruto said. Well, like what? Korra asked curiously. The other two shrugged their shoulders at this. That's up to you, Will said. Later. Naruto and the others approached the stadium, which had a big crowd trying to get tickets. Wow, this thing is more popular than I first thought, Naruto said as he looked at the crowd of people trying to get tickets. Yay. Maybe you should invest in sponsoring a team, Will said with a slight shrug. Naruto nodded at this as that would be good publicity for their restaurant. They soon approached the front of the line, but as they approached the ticket vendor put up a sign that said sold out before pulling the blinds down. Well, that's disappointing, Naruto said with a frown as they walked off to the side. Korra leaned against the side of the building with her arms crossed. So, what do we do now? She asked. Will paused at this. You wanna sneak in? She whispered to them with a mischievous smile. Korra smiled at this and nodded at Will. Naruto just sighed at this but followed the two women. They were easily able to sneak in since they'd found a window in the back of the building which they were able to reach thanks to Korra's waterbending carrying her and Naruto's airbending which he used to carry himself and Will up to it. They snuck around and soon found their way to what looked like a gym. They saw what looked like a teen boy who was practicing his earthbending by throwing some earth discs at a net on the other side of the room. Naruto noticed that he was trying to master accurate hits with each of his attacks. The teen soon noticed Naruto, Korra and Will watching him and smiled at them. Hey, what are you all doing here? He asked with a friendly tone as he walked over to a bench which had a towel and water bottle sitting on it. I could ask you the same, Korra said, as she approached. Just practicing a bit, he said, as he wiped the sweat off himself before taking a drink from the bottle. Shouldn't you be getting ready for your match? Will asked, as she could tell that this guy was part of a team from how well he was trained. The teen shook his head at this. Sadly, no. Recently, my brother got a job as a detective with the Metalbender's police force, and my team's waterbender quit suddenly while I was trying to find another firebender, he said. So, you need a firebender and a waterbender? Korra asked with a smile, one which Will mimicked when she realized what Korra was thinking. The teen nodded at this. What's your name, by the way? Naruto asked the teen. The name's Bolin, nice to meet you, the teen said with a smile at Naruto. So Bolin, how would you like me and my friend Korra here to join your team? Will asked with a grin, throwing her arm over Korra's shoulder. Bolin's eyes widened at this before smiling brightly. Are you two any good? He asked them. Well, we haven't played before. But we are quick learners, Korra said with a smile. Well, I have a few hours before the match starts. So, how about I help you two learn the basics until then? Bolin asked. Will and Korra nodded at this as they approached the equipment. Naruto noticed what looked like a ferret poking his head out of Bolin's shirt and approached Naruto to sniff him. Kurama then poked his head out of Naruto's shirt to get a look at the new animal. Wow, I have never seen a kitsune before. I heard they work closely with spirits, Bolin said as he looked at Kurama in interest. Don't let the rumors fool you. He's not that wise or spiritually aware, Naruto said with a teasing look at Kurama, who was looking prideful at Bolin's comments. Yay, as all he does is eat and avoid kids all day, Will said with a laugh. Kurama barked at Will with an annoyed look on his face at this. Love you too, fatty, Will said as she fired at a dummy. So, what are your names? Bolin asked them curiously. The name's Naruto Uzumaki and this is Will and Korra, Naruto said. Uzumaki, you mean that guy with the new restaurant? Bolin asked with wide eyes. That's me. You've heard of my place? Naruto asked. Well, my brother said that his fellow officers are raving about your food to the point where he wishes you delivered it, Bolin said. Note to self. Hire a delivery boy, Naruto said as he had to admit that was a good idea. So, are you lovely ladies seeing anyone? Bolin asked them as he wiggled his eyebrows. Will laughed at this. Sorry, but I'm taken, she said, letting Bolin down nicely since she could tell he was harmless. Yay, not really interested, Korra said kindly. Bolin frowned slightly at this. Hey, don't worry, buddy. I'm sure you will find someone someday, Naruto said as he walked over and placed his hand on Bolin's shoulder. Do you think so? Bolin asked with a hopeful look. Oh, sure. Being a nice guy goes a long way, Naruto said with a nod. I would listen to him. That's how he got me, Will said with a smile at Naruto. Lucky, Bolin said to Naruto. Naruto nodded at this and smiled as he watched Will and Korra practice. Later. Naruto was sitting in the Fire Ferrets break room where he could see the arena. Hey kid, you have a ticket? A guard asked, who looked into the room. I'm a guest of the Fire Ferrets, Naruto said, remembering the name of the pro-bending team. That's right, so get moving, Will said as Korra and Bolin arrived in their uniforms. These seats are for team owners, not guests, the guard said with a frown. And he is a team owner, Will said firmly, getting in the guard's face. He's sponsoring the team? Naruto, Bolin and Korra asked at the same time with raised eyebrows. Well, I'm sure I can give you some incentive, Will said with a mischievous smirk at Naruto. Bolin sputtered and blushed at this, while Korra had a look of small jealousy appear on her face. I'm sponsoring them, Naruto said instantly with a grin. Fine. But if you want less trouble, I would put your logo on their uniforms, the guard said before he left. Ooh, oh, kinky, Will said with a smirk before Naruto poked her in the forehead. He didn't mean tattoos, you loon, Naruto said with a roll of his eyes. Doesn't mean I can't get one later. Bet you would love your family seal as a tramp stamp on me, Will said as she ran her finger across his chin. You should get moving, the match starts soon, Naruto stuttered out. Will giggled at this and nodded before she led Korra and Bolin out. What's a tramp stamp? Korra asked Will with a curious look as they put their helmets on. Will's eyes widened at this before she got a bright smile and leaned into Korra's ear as she whispered into her ear. Korra's eyes widened at this and she blushed a little. What is it? Bolin asked as he didn't know either. Nothing. Korra yelled out with her face completely red. Naruto sighed at this as he sat down next to Kurama and Bolin's fire ferret Pabu, who were eating popcorn. Are you gonna share some of that? Naruto asked Kurama. Kurama blew a raspberry at him as he and Pabu ate. Later. Wow, they are naturals at this, Naruto said with a smile as he watched the match. It was rough at first, since Korra and panic used earthbending to block an attack, but thankfully after it was revealed who she was, they only gave her a warning to stick to water. What really impressed him was how Korra was using some airbending tactics to dodge the opposing team. Like a leaf on the wind, watch how she soars, Naruto thought to himself with a grin. And Will was not letting up on her rapid attacks on the other team. Bolin was actually pretty good at keeping up and backing his team up. Naruto then caught out of the corner of his eye that Tenzin was watching nearby, with a proud smile on his face. Wow, he sure got here quick, Naruto thought, glad that Tenzin was lightening up a bit. Will finally knocked down the last team member and the buzzer went off. And that's the match. A fantastic showing by the new members of the Fire Ferrets. One of the announcers yelled out. Indeed. It looks like the defending champs may have a problem if they keep this momentum up, the other announcer said. Naruto smiled at this as he watched his friends take off their helmets and hold up their arms in victory to the crowd who cheered. His smile even grew when he saw Tenzin yelling out happily as he pointed at the team before he compassed himself and straightened his robes. Later. Naruto, Will and Korra were following Tenzin to the docks so they could return to Air Temple Island. Is this the part where you ban us from seeing Korra anymore? Cause if so, I'm gonna, Will was saying before Tenzin held up his palm to stop her. No, Will, that is not my plan. Not that I could ever do that if I wanted to, Tenzin said as he looked at Will with a tired look. Smart man, Naruto said with a chuckle. Quiet you, Will said, not looking at Naruto. I saw the Korra actually did very well when playing the sport. So, I will admit that it does have some merit to it, Tenzin said with a small grin. So I can stay on the team? Korra asked with a hopeful look. Tenzin nodded at this, which made Korra smile and cheer happily. Good, cause I already told Bolin that team meetings are at the restaurant, Will said with a smile. Naruto nodded at this as he didn't mind doing that for his girlfriend's team. Okay, let's head home. I owe you for sponsoring the team, Will said with a smirk at Naruto. Naruto chuckled at this and nodded as Will dragged him off. Korra watched this and saw Will look back at her and give her a flirty wink as she and Naruto left. Korra's eyes widened at this before she glared lightly at Will. Game on, she thought. Tenzin sighed at this, glad that Jinora was only 14 so he didn't have to deal with this for a few more years. Naruto and Will were working in the restaurant, which was a lot more busy since Naruto started sponsoring Will's pro bending team. Naruto smiled as he spotted Will talking to some young kids who were asking her for autographs, which she was only too happy to do. Naruto then heard some yelling outside and raised an eyebrow at this. Hey, hold the fort for a minute, okay? He asked Will. Sure thing, sweetie, Will said with a smile. Naruto nodded at this as he went outside and saw what looked like some protesters outside his restaurant. Equality now. The people were yelling, with some waving signs about. Whoa, hold on, what's wrong? Naruto asked as he held up his hands in a peaceful manner. Your restaurant only hires and serves benders, someone yelled out. Huh? Since when? Naruto asked in confusion as he could have sworn he saw several non-benders in his restaurant, though they don't exactly announce their presence. Several of your fellow pro benders are in there now and they have been spotted harassing non-benders. A woman yelled out. Oh really? Well, if they try that here, then Naruto was saying before a person was thrown out of the restaurant. Through the window. The guy was in what looked like a pro bending uniform. Will then kicked the door open and threw two more guys who were in the same uniform as the first guy out into the street. That will happen, Naruto finished, gesturing to the three on the ground. You can't do this. We're the defending pro bending champs. The leader yelled as he stood up with the other two doing the same. You could be the avatar herself and I won't give a lemur's ass. You pick on some of my customers for being non-benders, you get thrown out. Will yelled as she summoned a ball of fire. It's 3-on-1, you psycho. You think you can beat pros in a fight? The leader said with a beepy look on his face. And I know an ancient style of fighting called whoop your ass. Will yelled as she charged at the three. As the fight started, Naruto turned to the protesters with a flat look. Anyway, as you can see, we don't tolerate that shit here. So feel free to come inside. We make great stuff, quick, Naruto said as he waved his hand towards the door. Oh god, my arm. One of the pro benders yelled. You scream like a bitch. Will was heard yelling. No. Not the face, that's how I make my living. The leader yelled out. Well then, you better find a new way to make a living. Now, scream for me. Will said as she began punching him. Naruto sighed at this as he went back inside. Don't get blood on the sidewalk, dear, he said as he went inside. No promises. Will yelled with her legs around one's neck and her arms around the other two. Later. Hey Naruto, what's up? Bolin asked as he entered the restaurant. Hey fellow teammate. You decide to try our food? Will asked with a smile as she served some kids bowls of ice cream. Yup. I keep hearing people raving about your food, so I decided to try something, Bolin said as he sat down at the bar stool. Here's a menu. Will should be free soon to take your order, Naruto said as he walked by while handing Bolin a menu with one hand and holding a help wanted sign with the other. What kind of help are you needing at the restaurant? Bolin asked curiously as he looked through the menu. Oh, we got so much extra business now that we decided to hire a delivery boy, Naruto said with a smile. Huh. Well, I was looking for a job. I mean, pro bending doesn't pay well when you're a new team, Bolin said as he looked up from his menu. That's because that manager guy is a scam artist. Will yelled as she approached Bolin. Anyway, what do you need money for? I thought you said your brother was a detective, so you didn't have to worry, Naruto said as he set the help wanted sign down. Yay, I'll take a burger and fries, Will, Bolin said before he turned to look at Naruto. Well, we need to pay to be in the matches, and Bolin was saying before he got interrupted. Bolin, I said we can take care of that, Will said as he handed Bolin's order slip to the chef through the kitchen window. It's 25,000 yuans though, Bolin said as he knew how expensive that was. Maybe I should find a business partner to help out, Naruto said as even if his business was thriving, that was a high price. I'll leave that to you then, sweetie. Here's your food, Bolin, on the house for a teammate, Will said with a smile, placing his order in front of him. Bolin smiled at this before he took a bite of his burger and after a moment smiled brightly as he ate some more. Well, if you want the job, Bolin, it's yours. But don't sweat the championship entry fee, Naruto said as he sat down next to Bolin. Thanks man, Bolin said with a smile as he ate some fries. Excuse me, Mr. Uzumaki. A teen male in a police uniform asked as he entered the restaurant. He had black spiky hair and wore a red scarf around his neck. Let me guess, a box of donuts? Naruto asked with a smile. Not today, I'm afraid. I'm here because the pro-bending team, the Wolf Bats, reported that and I quote. Some firebending psycho bitch attacked us and end quote, he said, reading off a notepad. Those punk asses called the police, Will yelled from the back. That would be my girlfriend, the psycho, Naruto said with a sigh. You know that's what you love about me, babe, Will yelled out. You're not crazy. I have you tested every 3 months, Naruto said with a teasing smirk. Bolin snorted at this as he ate his fries. Nice one, Naruto, he said with a grin. Bolin, what are you doing here? The officer asked with a raised eyebrow. Oh, hey bro. I'm eating here at my teammate's restaurant, Bolin said before he bit into his burger. Teammate? You mean the firebender that turned you down but was nice about it? The officer asked with a raised eyebrow. Yup, that's me, Will said, poking her head round the corner. And you are? She asked curiously. This is my bro Mako. Bolin said, slapping him on the back. Oh, the stick in the mud, Will said with a scoff as she walked over. I am not a stick in the mud, Mako said with a frown. Are you a rule follower? Will asked him. Mako was saying before Will pointed her finger at him. Stick in the mud. Will yelled out. Will, be nice now. Mako, please don't tell me you're here to arrest Will, Naruto said with a frown. I would like to see you try. Will yelled, putting her fists up. We'll go stalk Korra. She just entered the restaurant, Naruto said, pointing out Korra. Oh, you want me to see what kind of girl she is? Will asked with a pervy grin. Pull back, she's innocent, you loon, Naruto said. I love corrupting the innocent, Will said with a laugh as she walked over to Korra. Okay, so let's cut to the chase. What's the fine? Naruto asked Mako, knowing this was gonna end with either a fine or ending up on the news. The Wolf Bat said they will drop the charges if you pay their doctor bills, Mako said as he took out a slip of paper. Done, Naruto said with a sigh as he took the paper. Mako nodded at this before he headed for the exit and as he walked, he looked at Will. Stay out of trouble, Miss Vandam, he said to her. Yay, later narc. Will yelled at him. Mako glared at her slightly for this. Don't be late home, Bolin, he then said to his brother. Bolin gave Mako a thumbs up as his brother left. You are so immature, Korra said to Will as she rolled her eyes at her friend's attitude. Would you rather I be like Tenzin? Will asked with a raised eyebrow. Don't you dare, Korra said, giving her a playful glare. So, what brings you here, Korra? Tenzin got you going nuts? Naruto asked with a smile as he brought Korra a plate of nachos along with some sour cream. I got my training done for the day and I wanted to see if you guys were free to do something tonight, Korra asked with a smile. Ooh, a date, Will said with a teasing smile, wiggling her eyebrows. Will, you're gonna scare her off, Naruto said with a flat tone. Hey, I'm not scared of anything, Korra said as she crossed her arms. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this as he pointed at Will. You're gonna regret those words someday, with her as a best friend, he said to her. Honey, go away and show Bolin the delivery vehicle he's gonna be using, Will said with a smile that promised pain. Yay, I'm going, woman, Naruto said with a chuckle as he left the restaurant. I'm right behind you, Bolin said as he quickly finished his fries before picking up his burger as he followed Naruto. Now Korra, tell me. What do you know about harems? Will asked with a mischievous smile. Korra's eyes widened at this as she blushed lightly. With Naruto. Naruto and Bolin approached a garage that was connected to the restaurant that was next to an alleyway that led to the street. Oh cool, a motorcycle. Bolin said as he walked towards a parked motorcycle. That's mine, buddy. You're gonna be using this, Naruto said with a smile, gesturing to a Vespa that had the restaurant's logo on the sides at the back. Ah, that makes sense. I see there's a storage for deliveries on the back, Bolin said as he approached it. It handles really well. You wanna go for a ride on it? Naruto asked with a knowing smile. Absolutely. My first ride. Bolin said with an excited smile. Naruto laughed at this and tossed him the keys. Bolin caught the keys and moments later, he took off down the alley and down the road. Naruto smiled as he followed Bolin to watch, and when he made it out of the alleyway, he heard a honking noise, and when he turned, he saw a motorcycle barely stop in time. Naruto was surprised at this and fell back, landing on his butt. Oh, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? The driver asked as they got off their bike and approached Naruto while taking her helmet off. She was about Naruto's age, with black hair that went past her shoulders and light green eyes. Naruto's eyes widened as he looked at the woman. Wow, he thought, before he compassed himself and used airbending to help himself up. Don't worry, I'm fine, he said to her. The woman blinked at this before she smiled. Oh, you must be that new airbender with that restaurant, she said, placing the helmet under her arm. That's me. Naruto Uzumaki at your service, miss. Naruto asked, wondering what her name was. Asami Sato, the woman said with a smile as she took his hand to shake. As in the Satomobiles? Naruto asked as he shook her hand. Yeah, that's more my dad's invention than mine, Asami said with a smile. I'm sure that you have your talents too, Naruto said to her. Oh, I certainly do. But anyway, I should get going so I'm not blocking traffic. But I want to make it up to you for almost running you over, Asami said as she got back on her motorcycle and put her helmet on. What did you have in mind? Naruto asked her. How about dinner this weekend? Asami asked with a smile. Naruto smiled back and nodded before he took out a business card. Here, you can find me here with details, he said as he handed her the card. Asami nodded at this as she took the card and started the motorcycle. Stay out of trouble, Miss Sato, Naruto yelled over the noise of the motorcycle at her. Call me Asami. She yelled back as she took off down the road. Naruto chuckled at this as he watched her leave. Sadly, he didn't notice Kurama was nearby with a smirk as he ran inside the restaurant. With Will. So, are you interested in dating Naruto? Will asked Korra with a grin. Well, I would like to at least have a chance to get to know him, at least, Korra said with a slight shrug. You want to take him out on a date alone tonight? Will asked her. You're okay with that? Korra asked in surprise. Of course I am. Me and you are best friends. I could do a lot worse than sharing Naruto with you, Will said with a kind smile at her friend. Korra smiled back at her friend at this, glad that Will liked her enough to give her a chance. Plus, Naruto checks you out all the time, Will said before she started giggling. Korra blushed at this. He does? She asked with a smile as she looked down at her body. Oh sure, he loves tough girls. If he wasn't dating me, he would be after you easily, Will said with a smile. Before Korra could respond, Kurama ran over and jumped onto the table in between Will and Korra with a wide grin on his face. Oh geez, what did you do, Kurama? Will asked with a sigh as she recognized the grin on his face. Kurama snickered as he used a tail to sign at Will. What's he doing? Korra asked in confusion. He knows how to use sign language with his tail, Will said as she looked at Kurama's tail. Well, what's he saying? Korra asked her. Suddenly, Naruto walked in with Bolin, with them both smiling. Hey. What's this I hear about some rich girl trying to kill you and you going on a date this weekend with her? Will yelled at Naruto. Naruto stopped walking as he looked over at Will. How did you, he was saying before seeing Kurama grinning at him. Your pet is a stool pigeon, Bolin said with a chuckle. Well, right now, he's dead meat, Naruto said as he walked over while rolling his sleeves up. Leave Kurama alone. Why are you going out with some rich girl when I already have Korra ready to go out with you tonight? Will asked as she crossed her arms with a pointed look at Naruto. Okay, first of all. She isn't the typical rich girl, she seemed nice. And second of all. She insisted on taking me out after almost running me over. And third. Korra wants to date me? He asked with a raised eyebrow at Korra. Korra blushed at this as she nodded her head slightly. Well, so long as you're okay with it, she said. Of course I'm okay with it. Any guy or girl would be lucky to date you, Naruto said with a smile as he held Korra's hand. Well, both of you can go out now. I'll hold down the fort with the restaurant and get Bolin started on his delivery job, Will said with a grin. Yay, it's night now, so let's go have fun, Korra said with a smile as she grabbed Naruto's hand and dragged him towards the exit. Damn, you're strong, Naruto said with a chuckle as he was dragged towards the door. We will discuss you and the rich girl later, mister. Will yelled after Naruto as he left. Harem chuckled at this, knowing that Naruto was in trouble. Later, in the park. The sun was setting in the park as Naruto and Korra walked down the park's path. So Korra, what's it like being the Avatar? Naruto asked her. Kinda hard to say, that's like asking you what it's like to be blonde, Korra said, giving him a smile. Well, I can imagine that it's a little tough being the Avatar. What with the whole balance thing you're supposed to do, Naruto said with a shrug. Yay. The only bad thing really was growing up as it was mostly training and no friends. Well, besides Naga of course, Korra said as she placed her hands behind her head. Naruto frowned at this as he didn't like the idea of Korra not having a lot of friends growing up. No offense, but the White Lotus are idiots, Naruto said. Korra smiled at this and chuckled. None taken. If anything, please be more specific, she said with a curious look. They screwed up with trying to make you the Avatar. Yay, they trained you, but you didn't do what Avatars usually do. From what I've heard, the Avatar is supposed to travel the world and actually see each nation, right? Naruto asked her. Yay, pretty much. That's what Aang did, Korra said as she frowned slightly. Well, it doesn't matter. You have me, Will and Bolin now. Heck, if you want, we can be your team Avatar, Naruto said with a smile. Well, since we've got all the elements, we'll need a non-bender to become the new team Avatar, since Sokka was one on Aang's team, Korra told him with a smile of her own. Well, I'm sure that you will make more friends as you go along, Naruto said, throwing his arm around her shoulders. Korra smiled at this as she and Naruto looked up at the sky. So what's your story? She asked him. Not a lot to tell really. Me and Will wound up in a spot and we met the Metal Clan, who helped us out. And when we were ready, we moved here, Naruto said with a shrug. So, you just decided to open a restaurant randomly? Korra asked curiously. Well, back where me and Will are from, they had more types of food. And when we saw those foods weren't around, we decided to start a restaurant and cash in a bit, Naruto said with a chuckle. Well, from what I have seen, your restaurant is a hit with everyone, Korra said with a smile. Yay, and hopefully the word gets out that we are okay with both benders and non-benders. Heck, our cooks are non-benders, Naruto said. Well, if those guys come round again, I'll give them what for, Korra said, punching her fist into her palm with a frown. Yay, well, after Will corrected them, I'm sure they won't try that shit again, Naruto said. As they watched the sky, they heard what sounded like yelling nearby. Naruto and Korra looked and saw what looked like some triads talking to a girl about their age. She was wearing a mixture of earthbender and firebender clothing and had long hair that reached the middle of her back. Hey, what's going on? Korra yelled as she and Naruto ran over. Oh great, the Avatar and the Psycho Airbender, one of the triads said with a glare. We were having a discussion with her, so mind your own business, the Water Triad said, waving their hands to shoo them away. Yay, not buying it. So either talk or next time, Korra asks, Naruto said. Stay out of this. She's an Equalist and is passing out flyers for that Amon loser in our territory, the Fire Triad said. Yay, well, if she is being harassed by assos like you, then no wonder she's an Equalist, Naruto said with a glare. Okay, I have had enough. So get lost before Ayuth, the Earth Triad was saying, before Korra slugged him in the gut with a rock. The Fire Triad was about to attack before Naruto forced some air at him, uppercutting him in the jaw. The Water Triad went to grab the teen girl he and his friends were harassing, but the girl grabbed his waist and then jabbed him in the shoulder a few times before kicking him in the stomach, sending him back. You bitch. The Water Triad was saying before he noticed that he couldn't bend anymore. You Kai blocking bitch. He yelled out in anger. It's not so fun to feel helpless, is it? The teen girl asked before she flipped around and slammed her foot across the Triad's jaw, making a cracking sound as he fell to the floor. Naruto whistled at this. Impressive, he said with a nod. Thanks, the teen said as she picked up her flyers from the ground. So, who is this Amon fella? Naruto asked curiously as he picked up a flyer. He's the leader of the Equalists. He wants equality for all non-benders, the girl said. I can understand that, but from what I have seen, the Equalists are prone to violence, Korra said with a slight frown. A lot of us don't want to start a fight, but the government in Republic City doesn't exactly listen to us, the teen girl said. Well, maybe you haven't talked to the right one. Have you tried asking Tenzin, miss? Naruto asked her. Yay, Tenzin has said he would be willing to listen if he met an Equalist willing to talk, Korra said with a nod. My name is Rue, and I don't know how, the now named Rue said, with an apprehensive look. You can't fix things if you don't actually try, Naruto said. Ru paused at this and nodded at this. Okay, I'll try to actually talk to Tenzin, since from everything I've heard, he's one of the good ones, she said, giving a small smile. And if anyone gives you attitude, you can ask me to talk to them, Korra said with a smile. Korra, I already had to talk to the Metalbenders to get Will out of trouble. I don't need you giving me a headache too, Naruto said, giving her a flat look. Ru smiled at this, before she giggled a little at Korra, as she pouted a bit at Naruto. Naruto soon smiled at this. There you go, you're much more suited to smiling. Here, take this and look us up sometime, he said, as he handed her a business card. Ru looked at the card, and her eyes widened. Oh. I heard of this place, she said with a smile and a nod. The first meal is free, Naruto said with a smile, as he and Korra headed for the exit to the park, while they waved at her. Ru smiled back at them, as she gave them a wave of her own. I wonder if Blonde is single, as he looks quite cute, she thought to herself, before she walked off. A few days later. Naruto and Will were in the restaurant, having a regular day in the restaurant. We need to hire more help, babe, Will said, as she sat down to rest. Well, I'm open to any suggestions, Naruto said, as he sat down across from her. I say that we hire and train a manager, Will said, rubbing her chin in thought. I'm open to that. But that will take some time to decide who to promote, since we have several waiters already, Naruto said with a slight nod. That, and hire some more waiters, Will said with a sigh, as it was mostly her doing this and the pay sucked since she was an owner, so she got paid nothing. The door then opened, and Mako came in with a hard look. Hey Narc, what's got your underwear in knots? Will asked him with a grin. My brother didn't come home last night and right after he gets a job with you. Now, where is he? Mako said with a glare at Will. Naruto frowned at this. Bolin is missing? He asked. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't waste my time with you and your delinquent girlfriend, Mako said with a glare. Will glared back at this as she made a spark with her fingers. Normally, I would fry your ass for that, Narc. But my priority is finding Bolin, so watch your mouth. I have a long memory, she told him firmly. Okay, let's all calm down. We can find Bolin, Naruto said as he got in between them with his hands held up. How's that? Mako asked with a raised eyebrow as he folded his arms. Kurama. Naruto yelled into the back room. Kurama then ran out of the kitchen with a burger in his mouth. Please tell me you're kidding, Mako said with a look of disbelief. Nope. He may be pudgy, but he has a sharp nose, Naruto said. What about Korra and Naga? 2 noses would be better than 1, Will said. Good idea, sweetie. You go get Korra and meet me and Mako in the park. We can start there, Naruto said. Will nodded at this as she turned to leave. But not before she looked at Mako, who made an I'm watching you motion at her. Will responded with a one-fingered salute before she left. What do you see in her? Mako asked Naruto with an annoyed look. You'll have to get your own girlfriend to find out, Naruto said with a shrug as he left the restaurant. I mean, besides that. How do you not get annoyed at her? Mako said as he followed Naruto. Will grows on you. Plus, would you believe that she was shy and reserved when we first met? Naruto said with a smile as he reminisced. You're kidding me, right? Mako said with a look of disbelief. Nope. Look, just try to relax and I'm sure eventually you and Will can at least be friends, Naruto said as he gave Mako a smile. The bee she stops calling me a narc, Mako said with a small frown. Sorry, but you gotta earn that, officer, Naruto said with a chuckle as Kurama jumped on his shoulder. Later, outside the park. It was now nighttime in the city while Naruto and Mako were waiting for Korra and Will as Kurama slept on Naruto's head. Naruto smiled as he saw Naga running over with Korra at the reins. The polar bear dog soon tackled Naruto to the ground and started to lick him happily. Naruto laughed at this while Kurama growled at being woken up. Hey sweetie, hey Narc. Have you been waiting long? Will asked as she showed she was riding behind Korra. Korra smiled at the fact that Naga liked Naruto. Okay girl, let Naruto up. We have someone to find, she said, pulling at the reins. Are you sure these two will find him? Mako asked as Naruto got up. Between Kurama and Naga, I'm sure that we'll find him in no time, Naruto said. That's if you've bought something with a strong scent, Korra said. I got a piece of his pro-bending uniform and it's not clean, Mako said as he held up a boot to Naga and Kurama. The two animals sniffed at it before Kurama's fur stood up as he fell over with his mouth foaming. Oh, grow up you big baby, Will said as she rolled her eyes. Kurama scoffed at this before he snickered at his joke and started to sniff around. He was joking. Mako asked curiously as he had never met an animal with a sense of humor before. Kurama is a smart ass. So if you want something, you need to bribe him with food, Naruto said. If he finds Bolin, I'll buy him a prime steak, Mako said with a determined look. Kurama paused at this, before he yipped happily, before he sniffed around even more, before he paused again, before he took off into the city. Well, it looks like you motivated him, Narc Will said with a smile, as they all ran after Kurama. Korra and Will were on Naga, while Naruto and Mako were on their motorcycles. Geez, that thing is fast, Mako yelled, as he saw Kurama jumping across rooftops. Yay. Kitsunes are pretty fast, Naruto yelled back with a smile. Kurama then paused and jumped down off a roof and into an alleyway. They then saw sparks going off in the alleyway and what sounded like people yelling. It looks like Kurama found something, Will said. Oh god, my leg. A man yelled out. I think that you meant to say someone, Naruto said. They soon entered the alleyway and saw Kurama attacking some people in what looked like full-body uniforms. Looks like the Equalists actually have fighters now, Naruto said with a frown, as he didn't like the idea of a political group recruiting for fighting back. One of the Equalists looked at Naruto and the group and pulled out a bolo and started to spin it over his head. It's the Avatar and her team. He yelled out before he threw the bolo at Naga. Korra raised a pillar of earth up, causing the bolo to wrap around it. Then this dog thing must be their pet, oh god, it hurts. Another Equalist yelled as Kurama grabbed him with his tail, which was now way bigger, and snapped his arm with a loud crack. You freak, I'll skin yo, an Equalist yelled before Kurama growled and opened his mouth as he fired a burst of flames at the Equalists. This thing's a spirit. An Equalist yelled. We must tell him on. Another Equalist yelled before he threw down a smoke pellet. Naruto jumped off his motorcycle and waved his arms and sent the smoke into the air, which showed one of the Equalists running to a truck nearby. Kurama, sick em. Will said, pointing at the Equalist. Kurama roared at this before he grew to the size of a wolf and ran after the van and grabbed the back door of the van with his teeth. The door then broke off and showed that it had several people in the back tied up. Bolin. Mako yelled, recognizing his brother in the back of the van. Korra then stomped on the ground hard, making a massive boulder lift up in front of the van, stopping it. Before the driver could do anything, Kurama ripped off the driver's side door and grabbed the Equalist that was driving with his tail. Okay, asshole. You have around 10 seconds to tell me why you have my friend and several others tied up in your van, Will said, as she charged a spark in her fingers, which she held up in front of the Equalist's face as Kurama hung him upside down. And if you don't answer truthfully, my friend here will eat you, Naruto said, patting Kurama on the side. Kurama spat at this as he growled. I don't think Kurama eats trash, Korra said with a smirk, as she could tell Kurama wasn't a fan of that idea. Naruto shrugged his shoulders at this. I was trying to be intimidating, so sue me, he said. Babe, let me do it, Will said with a sweet smile before she turned to the Equalist. This is how you question someone, she said as she approached the hanging man. 10 minutes later. And I was supposed to take these benders to a rally where our leader was gonna use his power from spirits to take someone's bending away forever. The Equalist yelled out. Whoa, that's an actual thing? Naruto asked, looking at Korra. Korra nodded at this as she frowned. Yes, An could do it. So it may be possible, she said. Great. So we have a leader who thinks he has the right to take someone's bending away and he has followers, Will said with a sigh. I'll call in some officers to take these guys in, Mako said. I would appreciate a thanks, Will said with a firm tone as she folded her arms. Thanks, Will. Bolin said with a smile as he finally got loose. I mean your brother, Bolin, Will said with a kind smile at her friend. Mako nodded at this. Very well. Thank you, Will, for helping me. I owe you all a lot, he said. No need, Mako, we're happy to help a friend, Naruto said with a nod and a smile as he kinda liked Mako now. Will looked at Naruto at this before she sighed. Okay, fine. You're welcome. Mako, she said. Oh, you're growing up, Korra said with a smile. Shut up, bitch, Will said simply. Naruto chuckled at this as he and the others started to tie up the Equalists. Naruto and Korra were in undercover outfits, walking towards the building where the rally was, while Will, Bolin and Mako took the captured Equalists to the police station. Are you sure that guy you had Will threaten didn't lie? Korra whispered to Naruto as she adjusted her hat. Oh, trust me. He was telling the truth, Naruto said with a smile. Kurama poked his head out of Naruto's hoodie and nodded in agreement. Why is he here? Korra asked curiously. Will said that we should have backup in case things go sideways, Naruto said as he shoved Kurama back into his coat. After that display a half hour ago, they are probably on the lookout for Kurama, Korra said with a chuckle. I bet. Trashing an Equalist truck and breathing fire will scare anyone, Naruto said with a nod as they approached the door and knocked. The window to the door opened and a big man looked at them. We're here to see the big revelation, Naruto said as he held out a flyer with a picture of a man with a mask on it. The man closed the window and soon opened the door to let them in. Rejoice, my fellow non-benders. "Oh, and keep an eye on your girlfriend, she's cute," the man said with a chuckle at what he saw as a young couple. Korra blushed at this before she eeped as Naruto hugged her close with his arm. "Don't worry, none of those benders will hurt her. I'll be sure of that," Naruto said with a smile as he kissed Korra on the forehead. Korra blushed even more at this as her and Naruto walked into the building and started to walk down the hallway. "Why did you do that?" Korra whispered to Naruto. "Well, I figured I should play along with that guy. Plus, you're cute, so sue me for wanting to show you affection," Naruto said with a smile. Korra blushed at this before smiling back at him. "Thanks," she said before quickly kissing him on the cheek. "Don't worry. Once we get through here, we can set up a date after the weekend," Naruto said. Korra nodded at this, knowing he had a date set up with the woman who ran him over this weekend. They soon entered a massive auditorium where what looked like hundreds of people were gathered, waiting for the event to start. "I knew that some people didn't like benders, but not this many," Korra said with wide eyes. "I'm not surprised. People abuse their power enough and people are gonna get mad and want to lash out," Naruto whispered back to her. As they looked around, Naruto spotted a familiar face in the crowd and frowned as he recognized this person as Ru, the girl he and Korra met before. Soon the lights went down before spotlights shined down on a stage at the end of the room. Some Equalists in uniforms and masks came out while pushing people that were tied up and had hoods on their heads onto the stage. Soon, another man in a mask came out and walked over to the microphone at the front of the stage while a man followed him. This man had a balaclava mask and goggles on and 2 batons on his back. "That must be Amon," Naruto whispered to Korra, who nodded back while Kurama poked his head out of Naruto's coat to take a look. "Welcome, my fellow Equalists. For too long, benders have abused and subjugated us non-benders," Amon said into the microphone. The crowd cheered at this, with many raising their fists into the air. "I have come to you tonight to tell you that the spirits have come to me and told me the avatar has failed. And to right her failures, they have gifted me with the ability to take away someone's bending," Amon said into the microphone. This got murmurs from the crowd as they had never heard of anything like this. "Is that even possible?" Naruto whispered to Korra. Korra nodded at this. "It is, but only On could do it," she said. "I am not one to just say this and not offer proof, my fellow non-benders," Amon said as he signaled to his henchman, who pushed one of the hooded figures forward before he removed his hood, showing it was Zolt. "This is Lightning Bolt Zolt. He has made a career of using his bending to profit from his illegal activities and the hard work of non-benders," Amon said. This got boos from the crowd, with many throwing items at Zolt. "Oh, shove it, you bunch of," Zolt was saying before one of the henchmen slapped him in the back of his head. "Now, I will give him a fair chance to fight for the chance to keep his bending," Amon said as he nodded at his second in command, who untied Zolt. Zolt rubbed his wrists before he smirked at Amon. "That was a big mistake," he said before he thrust his fingers forward, firing a bolt of lightning at Amon. But Amon was already running forward and expertly dodged his attack. He soon made his way behind the firebender and grabbed his hands and put him in a hold. "Wait." Zolt yelled in fear as he felt helpless as Amon placed one of his palms on his head with the other at his neck. After a few moments, Amon let go of Zolt and pushed him forward so that he slammed onto his stomach. "DRRR, you will burn for that, you masked freak," Zolt yelled as he got on his feet and thrust his fingers forward. But nothing happened. "What?" Zolt said in shock before he tried again and again, but nothing appeared. "Their bending is gone forever. Long live equality," Amon said as he signaled to his men to bring the other bound and gagged men forward. This got cheers from the crowd, with many shouting Amon's name. "We need to get out of here now," Naruto said as this was crazy. "Wait. What about the benders?" Korra said. Kurama nodded at this before he jumped out of Naruto's coat and ran under the crowd's feet and made his way towards the stage. "Oh funk," Naruto said with a groan as he had an idea what Kurama was gonna do. "Come on," Korra said as she dragged Naruto outside. Kurama made his way towards the stage before he jumped high into the air and in a burst of flames, he grew to the size of Naga and landed in between Amon, his men and the bound benders. "Ah, the spirit who attacked some of my men," Amon said. Kurama growled at Amon and glared at him as he spat a flame at him, daring him to approach. "Does what I'm doing not please you, spirit? Even though you and your fellow spirits gave me this power?" Amon asked unafraid. Kurama growled at this before his tail shot behind him and cut the ropes binding the benders behind him, freeing them. The wall behind them shook, making a hole appear where Korra and Naruto were. "Follow me." Korra yelled to the benders, who ran towards her. "Ah, the avatar," Amon said as his men ran after them. Naruto nodded at Kurama as he jumped at Amon and his men and with a mighty thrust of his palms, sent a massive wave of air at them. Kurama then chose this moment to breathe fire into the torrent of air, making a massive torrent of fire, which blocked the way of the Equalists. Before Naruto could leave with Kurama, the lieutenant jumped through the flames and jabbed his metal prods into Naruto, causing him to be shocked. Ag! Naruto yelled as he was sent flying outside and slammed into a wall. Airbender's time is over. You can either submit now or get taken out, the lieutenant said as he charged his metal prods for attack. Amon then approached them and looked at Naruto, who was slowly getting up. So, you're the one who owns that restaurant, along with that firebender, Amon said as he recognized Naruto from his men's description. So, you know of my restaurant then. Does that mean you've eaten there or ordered from it before? Naruto asked with sarcasm. You seem to be fair to everyone from what my reports say. So why fight me? Amon asked. Naruto chuckled at this before he wiped his mouth. Easy, you're wrong in how you're doing this, he said as he crossed his arms. Interesting. How so? Amon asked with a tilt of his head. Taking someone's bending is like taking a limb from someone or part of their soul, Naruto said with a glare. Amon scoffed at this. As true as that may be for some of you, there are too many who abuse their abilities. And I won't stop until they are all equal to us, he said as he approached Naruto. Naruto took a ready stance at this, and as Amon approached him, he spotted Kurama charging a fire blast in his mouth behind Amon and his Equalists. And at the last minute, Naruto blasted some air at the ground and sent himself flying up, while Kurama fired his flames at the Equalists and Amon, making them scatter to dodge the attack. You're getting annoying, the lieutenant said with a scowl at Kurama. Good, cause that's his job, Naruto said as he landed on Kurama's back, while Kurama snickered, showing he was mocking the Equalists. Naruto. Korra yelled as she ran towards them riding on Naga. Kurama nodded before he took off running down the alleyway, while Korra and Naga followed. After them. The lieutenant yelled at the other Equalists. No, let them go. They will be good messengers to the city of what I'm capable of, Amon said as he watched the Avatar and Airbender flee. Air Temple Island. Naruto and Korra ran into the house and saw Tenzin walking down a hallway. What's wrong? Tenzin asked the two teens as they ran over to him. We snuck into an Equalist rally, Korra said as she panted for breath while hunched over. Tenzin frowned at this as he didn't like this. I don't approve of you two pranking. We weren't pranking them, you moron, Naruto said with a roll of his eyes while Tenzin sputtered at Naruto's insult. Tenzin, look, Amon, he can take someone's bending away, Korra said after a pause as this was something she never thought was possible after Aang died. Tenzin's eyes widened at this as he saw that the two teens were not lying. This is a problem, he said as he rubbed his chin. Yay, no kidding. Tell the city council good job for keeping the peace, Naruto said sarcastically as he gave Tenzin a thumbs up as he left. Are you mocking me? Tenzin asked as his eyebrow twitched at this. No, I really think you and the council are doing a good job, Naruto said with a flat tone, while Kurama poked his head out of Naruto's shirt and blew a raspberry at Tenzin. Korra giggled at this before she stopped at the look Tenzin was giving her. The next day. Naruto and Will were doing some work in the kitchen of the restaurant while Naruto told her about what happened last night. Great, so their cult leader actually has the power to shake things up, Will said with a scowl as she got the dishes ready for the day. Yeah, Naruto said with a nod. You don't really think that some spirits gave him the ability to do that, do you? Will asked curiously, placing the dishes on the tables. Kurama blew a raspberry at this, showing he thought this was stupid. What he said, Naruto said as he flipped some pancakes along with some bacon and sausage. Will chuckled at Kurama and threw him some sausage, which he caught and ate happily. They then heard the front door bell ring, signaling that they had a customer. Oh, hello, Councilor Tarlok. What brings you here? Naruto asked, recognizing the Water Tribe man. Now why wouldn't I visit the restaurant that is the talk of the town? Tarlok asked with a smile as he took a menu before sitting down at the bar. Because you're an uptight bit, Will was saying before Naruto poked her in the forehead. Ah, Miss Vandam. Your reputation precedes you, Tarlok said with a chuckle. I have a reputation? Will asked as she rubbed her forehead. Miss Vandam, you throw out people from your place at least twice a week with bruises, Tarlok said as he shook his head. Hey, they help. Will said, pointing at Naruto and Kurama. Yay, but I didn't pull a knife on a firebender and yell, and I quote. If I have to leave this kitchen, it's gonna be to get my funking surgeon's license. Unquote, Naruto said with a flat tone while Kurama snickered at this. Hey, that asshole called me crazy, which is ridiculous. You had me tested twice. Will said with a smile. This got silence from the restaurant while some of the workers coughed awkwardly. Not as amusing as this is, I did come here for a reason, Tarlok said as he looked at Naruto while putting the menu down. What do you need? Naruto asked curiously. I'm putting together a task force to go after the Equalists and… Pass. Will said as she came out with a plate of pancakes and placed them in front of Tarlok. Naruto nodded at this as he agreed with Will. May I ask why? Tarlok asked as he readied himself to eat. We have this restaurant to run and I need to perfect my airbending, Naruto said. This wouldn't interfere with that. Plus, we need to deal with this threat. So people who feel they have no other choice are a threat? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Of course not. It's a mon we need to deal with, then I'm sure we can appease the poor people he's manipulating into joining his cult of fanatics, Tarlok said before he ate some of his pancakes and paused. This is actually good, he said with a smile. Tell your friends it's part of our new breakfast menu, Naruto said with a smile. Look, we will think about it. But for now, we have work to do. So kindly eat and get the Will was saying before Naruto poked her in the forehead again. Tarlok sighed at this as he continued to eat, glad that they would at least think about it. Well, as a show of no hard feelings, I would like to invite you both to a party I'm putting on for the press and the city council, he said. Naruto and Will paused at this before Will nodded at Naruto. Okay, we will go. And don't worry, I'll make sure Will behaves, Naruto said with a chuckle as Will pouted at him. Wonderful. And please, feel free to bring some free samples of your food. I'm sure getting the word out to some council members would help you a lot, Tarlok said as he finished his pancakes and wiped his mouth with a napkin. Naruto nodded at this as he and Will watched him leave their restaurant after he paid and left a big tip. That guy screams villain, Will said flatly as she picked up the plate along with the cutlery. You think he's a mon? Naruto asked her. Him? Nah, he's more an up-and-coming politician who will play dirty, Will said as she went into the kitchen. Naruto nodded at this. Well, for now, we can at least play nice until he goes into jerk mode, Naruto said. Well, for now, you need to get ready for that date with the rich girl. Her butler dropped off a suit for you, Will said with a scowl as she handed him a pakage. Will, Asami is nice, so please don't be mean, Naruto said, taking the pakage from her. AKA, she has a rack, Will said with a roll of her eyes, while Kurama snickered at this. Naruto just rolled his eyes at this as he opened the box and saw a very well-made black suit along with some shoes and a tie. Oh my god, she's trying to spoil you, Will said as she looked at the outfit. You gonna be okay without me tonight? Naruto asked as the past night and now tonight, Will was on her own. Will smiled at this. Babe, you're not ignoring me. So don't you feel guilty, she said before she kissed Naruto on the cheek lovingly. Naruto smiled at this and nodded. Plus, me and Korra are gonna go out tonight after pro bending practice, Will said with a smile. Is this a date or a girl's night out? Naruto asked curiously. Whichever one that ends with her bent over in our bed screaming, as Will was saying, before Naruto groaned and slapped his face at his girlfriend's antics. Later that night. Naruto was walking out of the restaurant wearing the suit Asami had sent him and was about to head for the side garage he had. Mr. Uzumaki? A man's voice asked, getting his attention. Yeah, that's me, Naruto said as he looked and saw a man next to a Satomobile. Miss Asami is here to pick you up, sir, the man said as he opened the door and Asami was shown to be in the back seat of the Satomobile. Naruto saw she was in a very nice black dress and smiled at her as she smiled back. But before he could say anything. Whoa mama, now that's what I like. Will was heard yelling. Naruto groaned at this as he turned to look at Will, who was at the front door with a smirk as she looked at Asami. Get back in the restaurant, woman. He yelled at her as he pointed his finger at the restaurant. Will rolled her eyes at this before she looked at Asami. Don't hurt him, rich girl. I know how to get rid of a body, she said before she went back inside the restaurant. Naruto groaned at this as he got into the back seat of the Satomobile and sat next to Asami. The driver closed the door behind him before climbing into the driver's seat and started the car. So, the rumors I have heard about Miss Vandam weren't exaggerated, Asami said with a chuckle as the driver drove them off. Sadly not, I hope she didn't make you uncomfortable, Naruto said, giving her a nervous smile. Asami shook her head at this. Not at all. She seems like fun actually, she said with a slight grin. Really? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow as this was new to him. Indeed. She didn't try to suck up to me, which I like, Asami said happily. Suck up? Please, I had to stop her from insulting a councilman today, Naruto said with a snort. Oh? Tell me about her, Asami said with a smile, placing her chin on her hand. Naruto smiled back at Asami, not expecting her to be so willing to learn about him or Will, since in his experience, rich people were snobs. I'll tell you about myself and Will if you tell me about yourself. Deal? Naruto said, holding his hand out to Asami. Very well, Mr. Uzumaki, Asami said in a professional tone, shaking his hand. Before her and Naruto laughed before they started to talk. With Will. Will was at practice with Korra and Bolin, trying out a few combos. So, any ideas for how to get the cash for the tournament? Bolin asked his teammates. Naruto could spooner us, since he must have a load of yuans, Korra said with a shrug. That, or ask his new sugar mama Will said with a snicker. Who? Bolin asked with a raised eyebrow. Said her name was Asami Sato, Will was saying, before she was cut off. Sato? As in the Satomobile? Bolin asked in surprise. Will nodded at this, wondering what made Bolin look so surprised. Will, Naruto is dating the daughter of one of the richest men in the city, Korra said, as she had heard a few things while in the city and when she ate at the restaurant. Will's eyes widened at this, not expecting that. Hashirama, who was nearby with Pabu, snickered at this as he made signs with his tail at Will. Naruto is not trading up, you fleabag. Will bellowed as she threw some fire at Kurama, who ran away along with Pabu. Hey. No burning my fire, ferret. Bolin yelled out. Kurama consigned with his tail. Korra asked curiously. Yay, and I swear I regret helping him learn that, Will growled out. So, you're afraid Naruto is with another girl? Korra asked curiously. BFFT. Hell no. If she's a decent person, I can give her a chance. After all, I approved of you, didn't I? Will asked Korra with a smile. Korra smiled back at this and nodded. So, what's the plan for our date tonight? She asked curiously. Will just smiled mischievously at this. Be afraid, Bolin said with a chuckle, as he was used to Will's antics by now. Zip it, or I won't teach you how to attract women. Will yelled. Please forgive me, oh great and wise one, Bolin said, bowing before Will. You're forgiven, peasant, Will said with a chuckle, as Bolin laughed knowing she was playing. Korra just shook her head at her friend's antics. But Naruto. Naruto and Asami were sitting at a private table on the roof of a fancy restaurant. Wow, you go all out, don't you? Naruto asked, impressed that Asami got them a private table. Well, I figured you wouldn't want to be gawked at since you're on a date with me, Asami said with a smile, rolling her hair in her finger. It's fine. I'm having a great time, though next time we should eat at my restaurant, Naruto said with a smile. Would the food be free, or are you paying? Asami asked with a teasing grin. Half price for friends, Naruto said with a grin of his own. And for girlfriends? Asami asked with a coy smile. You're quite forward, Miss Sato, Naruto said with a chuckle. Well, you're interesting and you're not a jerk. And you run a successful restaurant that both the rich and regular people seem to love, Asami said with a shrug. Well, if you're okay with dating me, since I'm already with Will and Korra, Naruto said with a smile. Oh? You are dating the Avatar? Asami asked curiously, as she was interested in this relationship Naruto had with two women. Yay, both her and Will keep me on my toes, Naruto said with a nod. Asami smiled at this, as he had mentioned how Will and Korra were strong-willed. So you like strong women? She asked him, propping her arm on the table as she leaned her head on her hand. Oh sure. I find them much more interesting, and yes, that includes you, Naruto said with a smile. Oh? And what makes you think I'm strong? Asami asked with a peaked eyebrow. You carry yourself like someone who has been trained to fight, Naruto said, admitting what he noticed about her. You're quite observant, Asami said with a slightly surprised look. Well, I have to be. I grew up learning to fight. So I can tell if someone is a fighter, Naruto said. Did your parents teach you? Asami asked him. Naruto paused at this and sighed sadly. No. I grew up an orphan, he said, deciding to just cut to the chase. Asami frowned at this. I'm sorry, she said, cursing herself for bringing this up. Hey, it's okay, Naruto said, trying to put her at ease. No, it's not, Asami said with a hard look. Naruto frowned at this. Did you lose someone too? He asked, seeing she was thinking about something. Asami nodded at this, as she frowned. Naruto reached over and held Asami's hand. Hey, it's okay if you don't want to tell me, he said to her. No, it's okay, the whole city knows. See, years ago I lost my mom, Asami said with a frown. Naruto frowned at this, as he held her hand to comfort her. The Triad member broke into our home, and Asami said before she paused. Naruto frowned even more at this, as Asami went silent. Hey, it's okay, he said, as he moved closer, before pulling her into a hug. Asami's eyes widened in surprise at this, before she hugged Naruto back. Hey, let's get out of here. You need cheering up, Naruto said, as he stood up. And go where exactly? Asami asked, as she followed after him. Well, what do you like to do? Naruto asked her curiously. Dancing, racing Satomobiles and tinkering with my own inventions, Asami said with a smile. Naruto nodded at this. Okay, let's go dancing. I saw a place down the street, he said, as they left the restaurant. You dance? Asami asked curiously. Not really, but you can teach me, right? Naruto asked hopefully. Asami chuckled at this, as she hugged Naruto's arm and nodded before she rested her head on his shoulder. Later. It was now nighttime in the city, and Asami's driver parked the car in front of the rising tide and got out before he opened the door for Naruto to let him out. This was probably the best date I have had. Though I haven't had a lot, Asami said with a smile as Naruto got out of the Satomobile. Really? I thought with how beautiful you look, boys would be lining up to go on dates with you, Naruto said. Well, I'm picky about who catches my interest, Asami said with a smile, finding Naruto's words sweet. So, I have your interest? Naruto asked with a grin. Absolutely. We should get together soon, I want to meet Will and Korra, Asami said. Well, me and Will have been invited to Tarlok's party and I'm sure that Korra got an invite too, Naruto said. Oh? My father got invited to that, so I'll see you there, Asami said with a smile, glad for this coincidence. Naruto nodded at this. Not a bad end to our first meeting. Especially since it started with you almost running me over, Naruto said with a chuckle. You're never gonna let me live that down, are ya? Asami said with a smile. Nah, it's a funny story. Plus, what other couples have that as their first meeting? Naruto asked with a smile of his own. Asami laughed at this, glad that Naruto saw the bright side in their first meeting. Naruto then grabbed Asami's hand and kissed the back of it. See you soon, Asami, he said with a smile as he walked towards the restaurant's front door. Asami smiled at this as she watched him enter his restaurant. Count on it, she said with a sigh as her driver closed the door and got back into the Satomobile and drove off. Inside the restaurant, Naruto approached his bedroom door and paused as he entered and saw Will and Korra on the bed, making out while still fully clothed thankfully. Korra was on her back, with her hands in Will's hair as she tried to dominate Will's mouth with her tongue. But Will was putting up a good fight as she gripped her beep. What do you know? A good show after a good date, Naruto said as he leaned against the doorframe. Ah. Naruto. Korra yelled in surprise as her and Will separated. Damn it, Naruto, we just got started, Will said with a pout. Well, no need to stop on my account, Naruto said with a cheeky grin. Before they could respond, they heard knocking on the front door of the restaurant. Miss Vandam, I swear if you are corrupting Korra, we will have words. Tenzin was heard yelling. Damn it, Korra and Will grumbled out loud at their fun being interrupted. Sorry Korra, looks like you and will have to continue your lessons later, Naruto said with a chuckle. What lessons? She's a funking natural, Will said with a laugh as Korra got off the bed. Maybe I should have a go during our date, Naruto said. Date first, then we can play, Korra said with a smirk at Naruto as he pulled her close. Well, we have that party tomorrow. But how about sometime next week? Naruto asked hopefully. Count on it, Whiskers, Korra said with a smile as she kissed Naruto on the cheek before she left the bedroom, swinging her hips at Naruto a bit. Naruto watched this with a smirk, liking what he saw. That's my student. Show off that ass. Will cheered with a laugh. Glad Korra was such a natural. Will, Tenzin is outside, Naruto said with a sigh. Oh relax, he can't. What did that floozy teach you? Tenzin was heard yelling outside. Nothing, Tenzin, so don't have a stroke, Korra was heard saying. Then why do you have a mark on your neck? Tenzin yelled in a panic. Will chuckled sheepishly at this as they heard the two argue. I wonder if he will be worse when Jinora is interested in guys, Naruto said with a chuckle at the Airbender. Yay. Imagine his face when he finds out Jinora is always watching you. It's so cute, Will said with a smile. She's what now? Naruto asked in surprise. Will laughed at this. Oh babe, she's almost 16. She's gonna have crushes. Though don't be surprised if in a few years she makes a move on you, she said with a mischievous smile. Naruto was silent at this but decided to let this go for now. Okay, so what did you teach Korra? He asked with a smirk as he approached Will. Will smirked back at him before she pulled him close. Come on stud, let's wreck the bed, she purred as she pulled Naruto to the bed while undressing each other. The next night, Naruto and Will were at the party Tarlok had invited them to. Right now, they were giving out free samples of their food to the other party-goers. I must say, these mini pizzas are fantastic, one of the high society people said with a smile. And I rather like these mini cheeseburgers, another one said. How do you come up with these ideas, Mr. Uzumaki? These donuts are fantastic, a third person asked curiously. Naruto smiled and nodded at the gathered people as he handed out the food, glad they were enjoying the food. I'm glad we skipped the toothpicks, someone may have hurt themselves, Will said with a chuckle as she handed a small cup of popcorn to a woman. Naruto smiled at this before he felt someone hug him from behind and when he looked he saw it was Korra. Hey Korra, he said with a chuckle. Hey Whiskers. You better have saved me a burger, Korra said with a smile at him. Naruto nodded at this as he handed Korra a burger, who gave him a quick kiss on the cheek before eating the burger. It's the airbending squad, Will said with a smile as Jinora, Iki and Milo ran over to their table with their parents close behind. Ooh, oh donuts. Ikki said with a smile at the table with plates of donuts. One each, sweetie, Will said kindly, knowing that Airbender kids on a sugar high would destroy this place. Bima smiled at Will in gratitude at this. Hey Tenzin. How's Korra's training going? Naruto asked as he handed the man a cheese mini pizza. Well, she hasn't airbent yet. But maybe she would do better if she wasn't also learning from Miss Vandam, Tenzin said with an unamused look at Will. You know what, kids, go nuts. We have plenty, Will said with an evil grin as she handed Ikki and Milo the plate of donuts. Yay. They both yelled out happily as they each grabbed 2 handfuls. You are an evil woman, Tenzin said with a sigh at this as Pima tried to calm them down. I can see through time. Ikki yelled out before she ran off. I am an animal. Milo yelled as he too took off running. That was mean, Will, Jinora said as she looked at Will, who was smiling. No, being mean is telling your dad that you have a crush on Uv. Will was saying before Jinora slugged her in the stomach with her face blushing bright red. What's that? Tenzin asked curiously as he finished his mini pizza. Nothing, Tenzin. But I think you have a problem with your 2 kids, Naruto said as he pointed behind the older man. Tenzin looked around for a moment before a look of horror washed over his face. No, Milo, that is not a toilet. Oh dear, he said as he walked over to his young son while covering his face. Damn, you have a mean left hook, Will wheezed at Jinora, holding her stomach in pain. Jinora said nothing at this as she huffed and looked away from Will. There you are, Naruto. A voice yelled out, getting their attention. Naruto smiled as he spotted Asami walking over, along with a man that was wearing a fine suit, glasses over his eyes, and had black hair and mustache. Ah, you must be the Mr. Uzumaki my daughter won't stop talking about, the man said with a smile as he approached Naruto. Naruto nodded at this. That's me. Mr. Sato, right? He asked, assuming this was Asami's father. Indeed I am, Mr. Sato said with a nod as he held out his hand for Naruto to shake, which Naruto took and shook. Meanwhile, Will and Korra were approached by Asami. So you're Asami, Korra said with a raised eyebrow as she looked her over. That's me, and Naruto has told me so much about you too, Asami said with a smile at the 2 of them. Only the good things, I hope, Will said with a smile as she could tell Asami was one of the few good rich people. Well, he has told me a few stories. A tree you threw an Equalist through a window when he pushed a kid over in your restaurant. Asami asked, thinking this was a little far-fetched. Yup, and that jerk had it coming. He was lucky that I didn't break a few bones, Will said with a nod and a proud smile as she placed her hands on her hips. Asami sweat dropped a little at this, but chuckled a little as Naruto shook his head while he smiled at Asami making friends with the others. Ah, Avatar Korra. I'm glad you made it, Tarlok said as he walked over with a smile. Thank you for inviting me. And thanks for all those gifts that you sent me too, Korra said with a small smile. Gifts? What gifts? Naruto asked curiously. You looking to go after our girl, cause I will cut a ow. Will was saying as she reached for a knife before Jinora slapped her hand. He was sending me gifts so that I'd join his task force, Korra said with a sigh. I am not here about that. Tonight, the press wants to ask you a few questions, Tarlok said with a smile as he gestured to a nearby podium with reporters standing around it. Look, Korra is not here to be a soundbite for you, Tarlok, Naruto said with a scowl as he could smell a trap, and this was obvious. Now, there is no need for accusing a councilman of something like that, a woman's voice said, causing everyone to look over. They saw a woman who was wearing a kimono and had a bow tied in her long brown hair walking over to them. Naruto also noticed this woman was accompanied by 2 young women around his age. One had brown hair that was tied in a ponytail and she was wearing a green dress. And behind her was. Ru? Naruto asked curiously, recognizing the teen girl. Oh? You know one of my daughters? The older woman asked curiously while the other teen looked at Ru in surprise. Yay, me and Korra met her before, Naruto said, deciding to keep it simple as he didn't want to out Ru as an Equalist. That's wonderful. My name is Liling, and this is Yaling, my other daughter, the woman said with a smile. Naruto nodded at Ru and Yaling before turning to Liling. As for what you said, I don't trust most politicians. They can easily say things, but it's their actions that matter, he said with a firm tone. Will nodded at this along with Korra, while Asami and Jinora looked at the 2 politicians with impassive faces. Look, I feel the Avatar should try to answer some questions. A lot of people have questions for her who are scared of the Equalists and the threat they now obviously pose, Tarlok said as he gestured to the press waiting at the podium. Indeed. Especially with that freak taking people's bending, Liling said with a scowl and disdain in her voice. Korra frowned at this as she did see that Amon was a threat, and after a few moments she nodded. Okay, I'll answer a few questions, she said. Wonderful, Tarlok said with a smile as he led Korra to the podium. I don't like this, Will said with a scowl, as she, Naruto and Asami followed. Naruto noticed that Ru seemed uncomfortable near her family and stopped. Hey Ru, you want to meet Will and my other friends? He asked her curiously. Ru jumped a little in surprise at this, but nodded and walked over to Naruto. Liling and Yaling watched this in silence as she walked away from them. It seems the airbender is sweet on Ru, Yaling said with an interested look. Indeed, Yaling. This will be useful, but keep an eye on her, Liling said with a nod at her daughter, who nodded back. Naruto led Ru over to the podium along with the others. Are you doing okay? He asked her. Yes, I'm fine. I'm sorry about my family though. My mom and sister are difficult, Ru said after a pause. Oh? In what way? Asami asked her curiously. Well, Mum is always busy with her job on the council, and my sister is always training with her pro-bending team, the wolf bat, Ru was saying, before she was suddenly cut off. I knew I recognized that smug smile. Will said with a scowl. Will, Naruto said with a disapproving tone, while Ru hid behind him. Will frowned at this. Hey, it's okay Ru. I'm sure you're not insufferable like her, she said with an encouraging smile, wanting to put Ru at ease. Ru nodded at this as she stepped out from behind Naruto with a small smile. Are you just scared of Amon? A reporter asked Korra, causing Naruto and the others to look over. Korra scowled at this as she slammed her hands on the podium. I am not scared of him. He's the scared one, hiding in the shadows. And I am going to help Tarlok take care of the Equalists. She said with a determined look. This got cheers from the press, while Naruto and the others frowned. This isn't gonna go well, Will said to Naruto, who nodded in agreement. I bet you that reporter was paid to say that, Naruto said, scowling at the reporter. What's the plan? Will asked curiously. Me and you are joining too, so that we can watch Korra's back, Naruto said with a nod. Ru frowned at this as she looked down at the ground, not happy that her new friends were gonna go after the Equalists. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys, let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video, bye bye.